This is your News Source Evening Bulletin for today, Tuesday, the 4th day of February in the year 2020. I'm Gordon Mosley, thanking you for joining us. Here is what we're tracking tonight. The Elections Observer Mission from the European Union has started its work, with the first group of observers arriving in Guyana. The EU Observer Mission is here at the invitation of President David Granger. The teams from the mission will be dispatched to the various regions across Guyana in the run-up to and during the elections. At a press conference this morning, the Deputy Chief Observer for the EU, Alexander Mattis, said core analysts will be part of the team observing the electoral process in the country.
When I said that the EU is deploying a fully fledged observation mission, it means that there will be a core team of analysts based here in Georgetown. We will have a long-term observers who will be deployed for 6 weeks across the country. And shortly before election day, we will have also short-term observers who will be deployed before, during and after election day. Today, we are deploying 14 long-term observers across the country. They'll be working in teams of 2, so it means the mission will have 7 LTO teams. All 14 LTO long-term observers are very experienced. They come from 13 different EU member states and Norway. In the last 3 days, they received an extensive training about the electoral, political, legal, media, security, and logistics aspects of their work in the field. In less than 30 minutes, they will be departing to their respective bases across Guyana.
The 14 long-term observers who were deployed today will be working in teams of 2. 3 of the teams will be expected to observe 3 regions, ensuring that all 10 administrative regions are being observed in the periods before, during, and after the elections. The Deputy Chief Observer said that the team has brought together experienced observers who are from 3 different EU member states and Norway. Over the past 3 days, the teams were involved in extensive training on the local electoral system and the legal, media, and security landscape in Guyana. The long-term observers are expected to be the mission's eyes and ears in the various regions and will report to the core team in Georgetown weekly. One of the long-term observers is Nicholas Kokulis, who explained that as part of their fan-out across the country, they will be meeting with regional officials and other stakeholders, including the political parties and civil society groups.
Our established methodology is that we have several teams of observers covering the whole country, and then we have our team of experts, the core team in the capital, which is compiling all the information that we provide for them on a weekly basis. Between others, we will be having meetings with the election administration, we will be having meetings with election stakeholders, being political parties, civil society organizations, religious authorities, traditional authorities, and during these 30 days that will be deployed in the field, we'll try to have a global image of the preparations of the actual election day and the post-electoral developments that will be observed in the country.
The chief observer for the EU mission is expected in Guyana this evening. More news coming up in a moment.
Tired of long lines? Register with MyGTT at mygtt.co.gy. That's mygtt.co.gy to view and pay your bills from anywhere. Enter to win an Amazon gift card worth $25 or a bounty voucher worth 5,000 Guyana dollars when you sign up today. GTT, do more.
Fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up, fuel it up and drive, Super 95. Tune up. Protect your fuel system, boy. High mileage and performance, boy.
Guyoil's Super 95 gasoline gives you more reasons to drive and is available at 56 service stations nationwide. For affordable price, high performance, and high mileage, choose Guyoil's Super 95 gasoline.
Fuel it up and drive.
I love school. It's much more easier to me to go to school with my bike. Thank you to Mr. David Granger.
free transportation for school kids, and also secure a job for myself and hope for our future generation.
Neighbor! Hi, neighbor. 1 minute, please.
Yes? What is it?
You have to behave, sir. It's with you problem today.
Listen, Chantal, I'm very busy and distraught. This whole election thing just stressing me out right now. So just say what you want so I could go back to doing more important matters.
It's with the election doing to you. Like it's you running for government. I'm here now. I just want to borrow a little sugar till bye-bye come home to make a cup of coffee. Oh, and you could bring 2 tea bags, you know, like for the win. Wait, this little bit of thing you real steam
Chantal,
check
I gotta go. No, I gotta go, Chantal. Bye.
But neighbor, you still ain't tell me what is your problem.
It's not anything that you can fix anyway. Imagine Transport and Harbors is calling me in to work on elections day. I am so disappointed. I was so anxious to exercise my right and vote.
Why you can't just get somebody to vote for you then?
Chantal, what nonsense are you saying? Nobody is allowed to vote for me.
All the book sense you got, and you ain't even know that you could vote by proxy.
By proxy?
Yes. If you can't make it for vote, somebody register at the same place that you voted and on the same list of electors could vote on your behalf. But you got to get a form and submit it at least 10 days before. Yes. Me cousin Mirel had to do it for Auntie Sito, husband, uncle, son. He's a sea captain too, and he's a captain on one of them boats at Perica, and he had to work.
Oh, so if you can't make it, someone could vote for you?
No, not just anyone. Only if you're a member of the discipline force or rural constable. But they got their own election day. Or you're working on a vessel for transport, or you're blind or physically inconstipated.
Chantal, I think you mean incapacitated.
Whatever.
All across our nation, Guyana, we see it in your lives. The future growing even stronger. GBTI, all eyes on Guyana skies as the voices of our people rise. Singing GBTI, Guyana's pride is in your eyes. GBTI, we see Guyana through your eyes.
Welcome back. Turning now to the oil industry, one day after the Global Witness Organization released a report on Guyana's oil industry, claiming that the country could possibly lose up to $55 billion because of a bad contract with Exxon, the International Energy Research Group Rystad Energy is looking at the actual benefits that Guyana will get based on its own studies and findings. In a report which was released this morning, Rystad Energy said that with Guyana's oil production estimated to reach 1.2 million barrels per day by 2030, the country's total annual oil revenues could approach $30 billion within 10 years. Rystad Energy said the economic fortunes of Guyana, with a population of only around 800,000, are poised for a major transformation after its first ever oil development commenced production just 6 weeks ago. Offshore oil production is expected to grow rapidly in the years to come and will generate unprecedented revenues for the Guyanese government, the report said. The report also quotes Rystad's president of upstream research, Sonia Budu, as explaining that since the initial discovery back in 2015 of the giant Liza oil field in the Stabroek Block, Guyana has discovered more than 8 billion barrels of oil resources, adding that Liza was brought on stream in December, and many more oil fields will follow suit in due course. She said Guyana's rising oil revenues will make a huge difference in the continued development of the country. And the official also pointed out that at the same time, in order for Guyana to realize the full potential of its oil resources, a stable regulatory and fiscal environment will be a key factor. The other report by Global Witness focused heavily on the renegotiated contract with Exxon, pointing out that while there is no evidence of corruption in that new contract, Guyana should have pushed for a better deal. Global Witness believes that Guyana should push for a new contract with Exxon. But even with that report, Rystad Energy is forecasting that Guyana's oil production could reach 1.2 million barrels per day by the end of the decade, lifting total annual oil revenues to about $28 billion, assuming an oil price of about $65 per barrel. The report said the government income in the country, which is projected to be a modest $270 million this year, is forecast to grow rapidly and could reach nearly $10 billion annually within a decade. Meanwhile, a report in the Forbes magazine on the Global Witness report on Guyana has chimed the Global Witness report as not adding up. The writer of the Forbes magazine piece, David Blackman, contended that the allegations made by Global Witness don't really stand up. He said Global Witness states repeatedly and unequivocally that it found no evidence of any wrongdoing by ExxonMobil nor the Guyana government. Instead, he noted that the report focuses on the terms of the Stabroek contract itself and finds that Guyana is somehow leaving $55 billion on the table. The Forbes contributor said the conclusion by Global Witness is based on an analysis that it commissioned from Open Oil, a Berlin-based company which provides analyses for NGOs. The conclusion is based on a comparison between what Guyana would make with an overall take of 52% and 69%. The writer said the basis for the two percentages is left unclear in the report by Global Witness. Let's tell you now that a large group of sugar workers from the Albion, Blairmont and Iflat estates picketed the president's office this morning, demanding that he gets Guysuco to increase their salaries. Armed with placards carrying slogans about the cost of living and the need for a salary increase, the workers and their union representatives said they want the president to act.
Up to today, sugar workers have not received a cent increase, despite they have campaigned that they will give 20% increase per year. So we have tried to address the issues. We have talked to Guysuco. We have appealed to the president. There had been a petition which was signed by thousands of sugar workers. And we sent it to the president. The president said he sent it to Guysuco for advice. We are informed that Guysuco did respond.
The Guyana Agricultural and General Workers Union has been contending that sugar workers remain the only group of workers under the state apparatus who have not seen an increase in their salaries. While the Guyana Sugar Corporation is a state company, it is managed by a board of directors, and the government has been pointing to that board for the workers to take their grievances.
It has been a long time now, and we haven't heard a single word from Minister Holder, nor has the president said anything back to us on this matter.
In a statement after the protest, Gawu said that though there are several credible and rational bases for the Granger administration to assist the workers, the government appears to have turned its backs on the workers and closed its eyes and ears to the cries and calls of the sugar workers. The union said the workers cannot comprehend why their cries are not being taken seriously by the government. Today's protest came in the middle of the election campaign season. The state of Guyana's sugar industry has found itself being featured prominently at rallies across the country by the governing APNU-AFC coalition and the opposition PPP. At a recent rally in Albion, Berbice, PPP presidential candidate Irfan Ali promised to return the jobs to Berbice that were lost when the current government started to scale down the sugar industry.
This government took away from you what the People's Progressive Party Civic gave to you. This government placed you and many Guyanese on the breadline. They placed your families into hardship and they created disaster for many families, especially here in Region 6.
2 weeks later, the incumbent president, David Granger, went into the town of Rose Hall along the St. Berbice sugar belt and explained to his supporters and citizens of Berbice that the troubles with the sugar industry and Gaisuco started long before his government took office, and his government is now trying to make Gaisuco profitable.
I know some of you are worried about what happened in the sugar industry, but let me make it clear that I personally went into Albion, I went into the factory. I know the pain that sugar workers feel. But the sugar industry that the PPP handed us could not be sustained. If you come from Demerara, you can pass along Diamond. If the PPP shut down Diamond,
over the last years, the Guyana Sugar Corporation has received billions of dollars in support from both the PPP Civic government and the APNU AFC government. The PPP has enjoyed electoral support along the sugar belt for years. The coalition government is hoping to crack that trend. Barbadian Prime Minister and Chairman of CARICOM, Mia Mottley, believes the region needs to move with the same alacrity to address violence as it is using to take on the global threat of coronavirus. Ms. Mottley was in Guyana on Monday for a series of meetings with officials of the CARICOM Secretariat. She also met with President David Granger and opposition leader Barrett Chagdio. At a press conference last evening at the CARICOM Secretariat, Prime Minister Mottley zeroed in on the issue of violence in the region. She said the risk nations are facing from violence must be addressed.
Even as we confront, and I'll address that shortly, the risk of the coronavirus in the global community and to our region in particular, there's a greater risk with respect to violence than from the coronavirus. And if we can move with alacrity on that, then we ought to move with alacrity on this.
For this year already, Jamaica has seen more than 120 murders. Trinidad and Tobago has seen over 45 murders in the first month of the year. While the murder rate in the other two founding members of CARICOM, Guyana and Barbados, is significantly lower when compared to Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica, there continues to be a worrying trend of an increase in violence and violent acts across the region. Mottley explained that there is need for a broad-based response to tackle the issue.
We feel that the response cannot simply be a governmental response, but is one that must move from the church to civil society, cultural groups, sporting groups, artists, almost every viable player in our society. Because if the truth be told, even as we confront, and I'll address that shortly, the risk of the coronavirus in the global community and to our region in particular, there's a greater risk with respect to violence than from the coronavirus. And if we can move with alacrity on that, then we ought to move with alacrity on this. We can't simply speak about the Caribbean Sea being a zone of peace without not addressing the fact that the Caribbean land must also be a zone of peace. And the only people who can make it a zone of peace are our families, are our individuals, our communities, our institutions, our churches, our artists, our governments, collectively holding hands.
The state of security and violence in the region is expected to be one of the issues for discussion at the next CARICOM intersessional meeting, which will be held in Barbados. And during that one-day visit, Guyana honored the Barbadian Prime Minister Mia Mottley with the Order of Roraima for her outstanding and valuable service to the Caribbean region. The Order of Roraima is Guyana's second highest national award. The Prime Minister also said the path of Guyana and Barbados is inseparable, and she looks forward to the two countries building on their relationship. On the police blotter, a game of cards ended in the murder of a Linden miner in the Quarterstone Bag Dam in the Cayuni River area. Police investigators have arrested the suspect, who works as a security guard for the same company as the miner. The dead man has been identified as 28-year-old Raymond Leach, who is originally from the town of Linden. A police report stated that Leach and the suspect were involved in a cards game known as Chance, and the two got into an argument over one of the games. During that argument, it is alleged that a security guard pulled out his company-issued firearm and shot the minor to the upper left side of his chest. The injured man collapsed and died, while the suspect was arrested. Investigating officers have since confiscated the weapon, and the suspect is said to be cooperating with the investigators. He is likely to face a murder charge within days. In the courts, 8 years after 3 Linden men who were part of a protest were gunned down by the police, their relatives have filed a $450 million lawsuit against the state. The 3 Linden martyrs, Ron Somerset, Shemroy Bouye, and Alan Lewis, were shot dead on the 18th of July 2012 at the Wismar-Mackenzie Bridge by police officers during a protest over a proposed increase in electricity rates in the town. A commission of inquiry was conducted into the deaths, but failed to name specific ranks as being responsible for the deaths. But it was made clear that the police force was responsible for the deaths, since no other person was armed with a gun during the protest. A number of other persons were injured during the shooting. The Commission of Inquiry awarded $7 million in total to the families of the 3 young men, with 2 of the families being awarded $3 million each, and the family of the youngest of the 3 dead men being awarded just $1 million. Family members always decried the lack of assistance from the former government, and it is believed that prompted the lawsuit. In the lawsuit filed by attorney Darren Wade, the relatives are making an application for a declaration that the 3 deceased right to life and fundamental right to liberty were breached, encroached, and infringed by the state of Guyana. They are also seeking another declaration that the police were reckless and used unnecessary force in the killing of the 3 men. Additionally, the relatives contend that by not providing any medical aid or support to the men after the shooting, it caused the 3 men to suffer, and that was degrading and inhumane. They want the court to agree to that contention. The 3 families are claiming in excess of $100 million each for the breach and contravention of the fundamental rights to life, and an additional $50 million each for the inhumane and degrading treatment suffered by their relatives. The application will be heard on the 25th of February before Justice Franklin Holder. The Attorney General of Guyana Senior Counsel Basil Williams is listed as a respondent on behalf of the state. Mr. Williams had represented the interest of some of the injured persons when the Commission of Inquiry was held. Over in the Magistrates Court, one day after a quarantine farmer was charged for the murders of a resort owner and one of his workers, a 16-year-old boy from the same quarantine area was charged in connection with the same crime. Because of the age of the teenage accused, his name and identity will not be revealed in keeping with local laws. But the young man appeared in the juvenile court this morning before Magistrate Annette Singh. He was not required to enter a plea to the indictable charge of murder and was remanded to the Juvenile Detention Center until the 12th of February, when the matter will continue at the number 51 Magistrates Court in Berbice. The teenage murder accused is suspected of being the mastermind behind the attack and murders of 71-year-old resort owner Vivekanand Narpati and his employee Harry Prasad. The bodies were found on the 27th of December in a room of the resort. Both bodies were in a decomposed state with parts of the bodies missing. Both men appear to have been beaten to death after being tied up. The resort owner, who lived in Canada and was in Guyana on vacation, was making plans to repair and reopen the resort, which had been closed for a number of years. The 2 accused, the farmer and the teenager, are suspected of attacking the men as part of a robbery that became deadly. The farmer, who was charged on Monday, has been remanded to jail until the outcome of the case. 6 persons were initially arrested as part of the police probe, but it became clearer as the probe continued that just 2 of the persons held were linked to the crime. Across the region is coming up next.
Daddy, I can't believe you cancelled my birthday trip in March just to go and vote.
It is important to vote, Alana. People in government make decisions every day that affect our lives and our community. We have to be educated about the policies of parties that are running for government and pick the one that shares our views on issues that matter to us.
What do you mean by issues, Daddy?
Issues such as taxes, healthcare, and copyright laws.
Can I vote?
No, sweetheart, you have to be 18 and older.
Then why are you telling me about it?
Because I want you to be educated about everything, so when your turn comes, you'll be fully informed. Look, it's very simple. First step is show your national identification card to the election official. Then your name is checked on the official list of electors. Then your fingers are checked for the ink stain. Collect ballot paper with the official mark from the election official. Then you go into the polling booth to mark your ballot paper carefully. Then stain your right index finger and deposit your marked ballot paper into the ballot box.
Hey, it's not so simple. You forget peace. Before you stain your finger, you have to return to the election official with the ballot paper folded, showing the official mark. Then you stain your finger.
Ew, why the glass stain the finger?
That is to stop them wicked people who like to vote more than one time.
How long have you been standing here eavesdropping?
You know it's not the first time. You that needs to mixing up the poor child. You want she hair turn hard like you?
Bye-bye.
What? Remember the other day your teacher was spell receipt wrong? You never hear about Google? It's just joke I'm making. You can't lock your window. I can't hear what you're saying. Alright, you're busy. We'll come back later if you want. I can stay if you want to. But you can push that chair. Put my foot out in.
You're out of a job, right?
I am.
How long have you been in construction?
Very long.
What's your experience? Show me how hard you can work. That's it? We'll call you. Sir, I'll be tempted to touch you if you don't step back. Sir, kindly remove from the premises. Sir, you're making me hot. Please remove from the premises. Come on, sir, give me some more. What is that? Give me more. I want more. I want to see that body. You're too sexy for this job. Sir, this job requires muscle power. What do you have? Flexibility. This job requires that you work long hours, hard hours.
Sign me up, I come for this work. Sign me up, I come for it. Boss lady, I come for this work. Sign me up, I come.
I'm a public servant. In 2015, I was working for $34,000. Today, my salary is $70,000. I earning way more under the AP and UAFC in just 4 short years. That's why I voted for them.
Fact. Public servants' minimum wage increased by 77% in 4 short years.
That was a paid political ad.
We are legions of men standing strong, but never too proud to stoop and help someone. We must send a clear signal to all. Do right. Walk in upright ways, knowing that's what being a man is all about. And ever aware that things will only get worse when good men do nothing. Stand strong. Be the one to live right.
Across the region right now, an International Human Rights Commission today said that the government of President Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela has blocked its members from boarding a plane for Venezuela, where they plan to investigate alleged abuses. The rejection had been expected in large part because the group from the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights had been invited by the country's Congress. The legislature and Maduro mutually consider one another illegitimate. The 3 members of the group posted a picture on Twitter holding their boarding passes at the airport gate in Panama. They said Maduro's government told the Panama-based Copa Airlines not to allow them on the flight to Caracas. In Latin America, 9 people, including at least 4 boys, were shot dead in an amusement arcade in the city of Uruapan in western Mexico. Investigators say the arcade is used by the Los Viagra gang to sell drugs. The gunmen are thought to belong to the rival Jalisco New Generation cartel. The killings come just days after police detained a suspected local leader of Los Viagra, an arrest which triggered shootouts between the security forces and gang members. After that suspect was arrested, cars and trucks were set ablaze as the gang members opened fire on the police, wounding 2 of them. And finally tonight, international news. The wife of the Prime Minister of Lesotho is to be charged with murdering his previous wife. First Lady Masia Tabane handed herself in to be questioned by the police in the Southern African Mountain Kingdom. Prime Minister Thomas Tabane has also been questioned about the killing. His estranged wife, Lipolelo Tabane, was shot dead outside her home in the capital of Maseru 2 days before his inauguration back in 2017. The couple were involved in a bitter divorce proceeding at the time. The attack was originally blamed on unknown armed men, but recent court papers filed by the country's police commissioner have raised further questions. An arrest warrant was issued for the 42-year-old First Lady on the 10th of January after she disappeared. She was picked up from the border with South Africa earlier today. And that's your News Source Evening Bulletin for tonight. I'm Gordon Mosley reporting.